I often got a question when people would find out I was in the television news business. I was an anchor and reporter. They'd ask me, hey, people recognize you? That question always made me almost as uncomfortable as when people actually would recognize me on the street. Because it's not the reason I got into the television news business. I got into the business because I loved finding great stories and getting access to life-changing events as they were happening, and the storytelling, the writing of it, and the satisfaction that comes with finding that great story to share with everyone. So no, I didn't get into the broadcast television news business to put this mug on TV. I mean, it was really fun. I'm not saying it wasn't. But people who are not in the news business, some anyway, seem to somehow equate being on that screen with being famous or a kind of celebrity. Now, obviously, some of the big television news stars on the network side, cable, wherever, they are kind of celebrity status, but it's just not how I felt about it. It's okay that they asked me that question. But true celebrities like the Hollywood variety or from the music business, that is, in fact, a whole other level of fame. Which brings me to one of the more recent ways in which our screen-obsessed society has managed to sort of manufacture fame for some really talented people who, for any number of reasons, just hadn't gotten their big break. In this case, in the music business. So one would think then maybe if you managed to leap from total obscurity to become the winner of The Voice, maybe, your sudden fame would open doors to the future you barely even let yourself picture before it happened. But what if, to paraphrase a line from the theme song of this podcast, in fact, performed by today's guest every week, it is what it is till it isn't what you pictured. We are about to meet the inaugural winner of The Voice of Ireland and how his sudden fame became overwhelming and what he did about it. I'm Drew Rosenfield, and this is Life Unexpectancy, a podcast about life's sudden curveballs and triumphs and how we navigate them when there is no set of instructions.
I guess it is what it is till it isn't. Yes, it is what it is.
It is the winner of The Voice of Ireland, Pat Byrne!
That was 2012. Singer-songwriter Pat Byrne saw all four judges' chairs turn on his initial appearance on The Voice of Ireland. He went in to win that first season of the show in Ireland, and in a few short months, he released his first album. He was only 22. Fame, boy, did it come on suddenly. Unexpectedly, you might say. But we're going to dive into that with Pat himself today, because Pat Byrne is here. Welcome to Life Unexpectancy.
Hey, Jim, thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
So good to see you. Our listeners might discern that you are from across the pond. Exactly where's home, Pat, in Ireland?
I'm from a small village called Bryne in County Carlow, which is in the southeast of Ireland, about an hour and a half south of Dublin. And spent most of my life there. I lived in Dublin briefly before I moved to Texas and been here for almost 9 years now.
We're going to get to that move because it is very significant in this episode. But first, let's go way back. Pat, tell us what life was like as a young boy in Boris.
I was lucky with my childhood. It's a really picturesque, beautiful. When you picture Ireland, you're probably picturing the place I was born. It was on the foothills of Mount Leinster.
So green everywhere.
Green everywhere, beautiful rivers. And I grew up in a house that was like 600 years old. My dad's a cop, so we lived in the police station, which has been there for centuries. And so that's where I grew up. And I was one of the very few kids in my village that played music. So as soon as I got a guitar, I was 15 years old. I just started playing in the local pubs, and I sang at everyone's christening and wedding and just became the local singer. And music was always a massive part of my life growing up. And, you know, when you grow up in Ireland, you're just surrounded by beautiful folk songs that have been around for centuries and great storytelling. And so I really got a good start as a songwriter just being born in Ireland. I was lucky.
Wait, can you go back? Your father was a cop, you said, and you lived at the police station, literally above the quarters where the jail was, where maybe somebody had to spend the night because they imbibed a little too much at the local pub the night before.
There was no jail.
Okay.
It was very much like it. But yes, we literally lived. One of the rooms in our house was the police station. It was small, but that's where people would come and do paperwork. And there was always cops in our house for dinner. And we call them guards. I'm becoming very, very American. But yeah, literally, it was in the police station. And when Dad retired, we moved to a smaller house in a more rural part of Boris. But yeah, it's just a strange way to grow up.
So did you ever have any thoughts of following in his footsteps and getting into law enforcement, or was music really a predominant interest? It was an early passion and obvious to you that that's where you wanted to go.
It was very clear to me that it was going to be music. My brother, though, became a guard, and he's a guard in Dublin now, so carrying the torch.
Officer Byrne, is that who we'd find?
Guard Byrne, I suppose.
Okay, Guard Byrne. I'll be sure to look out for him.
Hopefully I'll never have to come across him.
Pat, do you remember your first experience kind of living with music and feeling like it was a part of you? What was that like?
Yeah, I just always naturally gravitated towards. I was lucky that neither of my parents were musicians. No one in my family played music, but they kind of just had instruments lying around from a young age. There was like a half-size guitar and a keyboard, and my brother never went near them, but I was always just figuring out chords and teaching myself stuff. And it was always what I felt like I was best at and I was confident in. Gave me a lot of confidence. And when I was 7, I joined the local marching band, started playing drums, and we traveled the world. We did the St. Patrick's Day parade in New York. And
really?
And in Paris, yeah. That was my first real experience playing music. And then when I was a teenager, I fell in love with, Bruce Springsteen and Tom Waits and some of my heroes, and started listening to rock and roll and folk music.
So The Boss was a big influence on you?
Massively, yeah. I love Springsteen.
And how many instruments do you play, Pat?
Well, I was a drummer first and foremost, and I love playing drums, and that's what I was kind of educated in. So I would say I play the drums and I play guitar, and I can noodle around on most instruments, but really they're the only two that I'd be confident.
But I'd say you do quite well on those two. So no pressure to take up other ones from me.
Thanks.
And were you initially self-taught? Did you have any teachers, role models? How did you learn?
I had a teacher who taught me drums in my local village, but I taught myself guitar.
Really?
Yeah, just from like watching videos of people playing, and honestly just messing around since I was a kid. You just kind of figure things. And then when I went to college, I started playing with other musicians. I was always solo, but when I met other friends that played music, you just pick up stuff from your peers.
I get lost in translation, I fly into a rage, I splatter affection all over the page. But this is no love story, we're not Jack and Diane. If I was a letter, you'd return me, but I am only a man.
So you've never had lessons in guitar?
No.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are that way, especially like folk singer-songwriters. Like John Bryne definitely never had a guitar lesson. Because I'm not exactly a virtuoso guitar player, but it does what I need. It accompanies my voice. I'm a singer first and foremost. So, yeah.
All right. So let's go back to your early 20s, okay? Who brought up this notion of possibly auditioning for The Voice, or where did that even come from? How did you hear about it?
Well, I never enjoyed those shows. I never watched them. And so I still can't believe I did it. But I was in college, not doing very well, was really spending all my time playing music. That's kind of how I made my money at that time. So I would do 4 gigs a week. And college was really a secondary activity that I didn't put much effort in. And I ended up kind of failing a lot of exams, and my parents were not happy with me.
Making your parents very proud.
Yeah, they weren't happy at all, but they loved they would come to all my shows. They loved that I was playing music. And my dad said, look, if you're not going to finish college, you really better make a go at music. And this show is coming to Ireland. Why don't you audition for it?
It was your dad.
He said it first. And then my girlfriend at the time was like, I pulled up the website and it was just a crazy amount of effort to apply. And I was like, I'm not going to do this. And she was with me and she was like, I'll do it. And she applied for me. And I kind of forgot about it. And then I got a phone call a few weeks later that I was invited to go audition, which I was, I didn't think I was actually going to go through with it, but I went up and auditioned and got through to the next round, and your ego gets tickled a little bit. And then I ended up getting through the round after that. And then eventually there's cameras in front of my face, and it just kind of snowballed, and the 4 judges turned around and I was like, oh, this is fun.
Did you have that notion in your mind when you started the journey and got to audition that maybe you could win this thing? Or was that just a remote possibility in your mind?
It was as much as you could conceive that you'd win the lotto. Like there was no, it didn't seem like an actual possibility that I would win. And I didn't care, honestly. I wasn't trying to win it. I guess I was trying to get some exposure so that, if I wasn't going to do college and I was going to rely on music to make money, a bit of exposure couldn't hurt. And that's kind of how I was thinking about it. And then you just keep getting through, and 6 months later I won it. And yeah, it was a lot of exposure.
More than you could ever have imagined or bargained for, right?
I see trees of green, red roses too.
Absolutely. I remember my face was all over all the front pages the day after I won, and it was very surreal. You were talking about fame in your intro there, and literally one day I wasn't famous, and then the next day in Ireland I was very famous, and I was on the chat shows, and for about 2 years I would be stopped on the street all the time, and it was really fun, but also it impacted me very negatively in terms of how I viewed music and how I viewed myself as an artist. And
let's unpack that a little bit, Pat, because one might think you audition, next thing you know, the 4 chairs turn, you're heading to the final round, you win it. Now you're the winner of the Voice of Ireland, and that fame just comes at you suddenly. You're in the spotlight. Why was that not the experience that you wished for?
Well, as I mentioned, I'm not a fan of these shows, and when you win a show like that, you're more of a TV star than a songwriter. You're not famous for a song that you've written or your credible artistry. It's you're famous because you were on TV for several weeks. But then you have that title of being the winner of The Voice, and there's all of a sudden a lot of pressure to actually be successful, because you don't want to, the following year be working a day job because you've clearly failed at that point. So I just put a lot of pressure on myself. I would book a gig and it was people who wanted to be there to take a photo with the winner of The Voice. It wasn't people that wanted to listen to my music. So I don't know. I just kind of fell out of love with music very suddenly. I was in a restrictive contract where I wasn't able to book shows freely. And it was a 360 deal where they owned all the rights to all my image and music and merchandising and everything. And I just kind of ended up not doing music the way I wanted to,
So it sort of had the reverse effect. You said you fell out of love with music, the thing you were so passionate about.
Yeah, big time. I didn't want to pick up a guitar. I kind of fell into doing a lot of wedding gigs and private corporate gigs because I didn't love the music that was being written for me. I put out a record that year that was written for me. I wasn't a songwriter at the time. I was 22 and I was just singing cover gigs in pubs. So they wrote all these Springsteen-esque pop songs that they thought would work for me, but I just never liked them. So I didn't want to tour with those songs, and I ended up just taking money gigs. And for about 10 years, I just played at weddings, playing the same 30 or 40 songs every night, making a good living. But I was the winner of The Voice, who was just booked to play people's weddings as almost a novelty, it felt, So I didn't see myself as a songwriter or an artist, and music was just work. Every time I opened the guitar case, it was like, here we go. Just get through the next hour and a half of singing the songs you don't enjoy. And it was 10 years of that,
10 years where you just didn't feel it. You weren't into it.
It wasn't, 8 years? I moved here when I was 26 or 27. So it was only 4 or 5 years.
But it felt like 10.
like a lot longer. Yeah.
So you're doing something that was once your passion. Now it feels like a chore. How were you doing mentally and emotionally?
Not great. I had a lot of shame about being on The Voice, because
Really?
once the parade and the glory of winning the thing dies down, you're kind of left with this like, oh, there's the guy that won The Voice, and you just become that, and your friend, it was just a bit embarrassing, honestly, is how I felt about it.
Did you entertain the thought of just quitting music altogether and doing something completely different?
I never entertained that. I know it's the only thing I'm good at. I know I can make a living doing it, and I just accepted, not everyone loves their job. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to sing weddings and enjoy the rest of my life when I can. And, sometimes weddings are really fun. I'm poo-pooing it here, but I mean, a lot of people make a great living playing weddings. I guess I felt like a dancing monkey or something.
So winning The Voice, one life, Unexpectancy. Then it's not what you thought it was going to be. And at a certain point, you decided to just pack up, leave Ireland, and move to Texas.
Yeah. I've stumbled on Austin, Texas, and spent a week here and fell in love with the music scene. And I saw people, playing music that they had written that they love to crowds that were paying to sit and listen to it. And I was like, this is what I want to do. I can't go back and do weddings after seeing people, living their dreams for real in a town like Austin. And when I got home, I called my agent who was booking wedding gigs for me and said, I'm leaving Ireland, so don't take any more gigs. And I fulfilled my obligations for the rest of the year, and then managed to get an O1 visa, an artist visa, and moved over the following year. And it was a lot to do with escaping the shame I had around being the winner of The Voice. And you can come here and nobody knows who you are, and there was enormous freedom. And I immediately started writing songs and didn't have this heavy, like almost apologizing for being on The Voice. That's how I felt I had to present myself. So I got to be just an artist for the sake of being an artist, and the songs I had written were the only things that were giving me any street cred. I never meant, this is the most I've spoken about The Voice since I've lived in America. I don't advertise it. It's not something I use to try and get people to come to shows. It's just something I kind of came here to escape.
And I really appreciate you sharing this with us, Pat, because I know you don't talk a lot about that part of your life, winning The Voice, but I was really interested in that sort of counterintuitive experience around the sudden fame and how you could have ridden that and remained a big star, especially at home in Ireland, and stayed and maintained that level of notoriety. But that just wasn't for you somehow.
Yeah, I could have capitalized on that fame I had all of a sudden and really just went with it and lived up to The Voice thing, and really, I definitely could have, but I really didn't want to, and I'm glad I did, because God knows what I'd be doing right now. I probably would have been some weird celebrity on Irish TV doing reality shows or something.
Maybe you'd be a news anchor, Pat.
Hey, that'd be fun. I'd like to do that.
But life is good for you in Austin, and I know you're touring all over the country. You were up here in New York in our area last spring. So you're really getting to see the United States.
Yeah, that's what I love most about being in America. There's so much to see, and you can be on the road all year round and not play the same venue twice and meet amazing people. And I feel like I've got these pockets all over the country that I can visit every year. And it's, kind of a dedicated group of fans in certain parts of the States. And I just got back from New Mexico, where I was doing a river trip, a music river trip on the River Chama for 4 days with 20 music lovers, and we would just raft down the river, and at night I would sing around the campfire, and it's amazing to get to do that. And then this weekend I'm driving to Oklahoma for a couple of shows, and I live on the road. I would say I'm on the road 60% of my life, but then I get to come back to Austin, and this is my home base, and it's great.
But you love being on the road. You love seeing the country, right?
I love it. I'm lucky because I have some friends that don't like driving or being alone for that long, but I'm happy to do a 14-hour drive. And
wow. And have you found a favorite part of the United States, a favorite city maybe?
Oh, I have so many. I love New Orleans. I love the culture and the food in New Orleans. I don't know if I could live in New Orleans, but I also like New Mexico, where I just got back from, is absolutely gorgeous. Around Taos and Santa Fe.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
What about upstate New York? It surprised you, didn't you? didn't it? How beautiful it is.
Absolutely love it up there. Yeah, upstate New York, Maine. I love that part. That feels more like home, you know?
Yes. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. The ocean is gorgeous. There's beautiful scenery. It's rocky in places. Okay, speaking of home, and I hesitate to bring this up, but we did talk about this ahead of time. About a year and a half ago or a little bit longer came another big life unexpectancy for you. You found out that your mom had sort of kept a secret from you about a major health challenge of her own.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say she kept this. She kept a secret in that she didn't let me know she was suffering and in pain.
Okay.
But she didn't know that she had cancer. It was totally untreated and undiagnosed until it got to the point that she was rushed to hospital. And I found out and flew home, and she died a few days later. So that was very traumatic and a really tough time. And, I realized I'd been here for 6 years and maybe only saw her like 6 times in those 6 years, which was tough. But I was lucky I got to go home and be with her for her final few days,
Amazing. How did it finally come to light that there was this serious issue with mom's health?
She wasn't able to eat or really get out of bed and wouldn't, my dad wanted her to go to the hospital, but she didn't want to do that. And eventually her sisters had to come down and drag her into an ambulance. And she really was not, my mother was a wonderful person, but very socially anxious, and going to the doctor wasn't something she ever really wanted to do or did. And so a very proud woman as well. She I'm sure she knew she was on the way out and she wanted to go on her own terms. And
I was going to say, she did it her way. She did it the way she wanted to.
Exactly. I mean, if she found out a year prior that she could have had treatment, I'm not convinced she would have went that way. I think this is how she wanted to go.
And you came back to Texas shortly after that?
Spent a few months with Dad in Ireland, and then came back, and because I had a tour booked. I had to cancel a bunch of shows, obviously, but I had one tour that I really wanted to do with my friend Jamie Harris, who's a great songwriter in Nashville. And I got off the plane and went straight to the Saxon pub for our first gig. I remember my guitar and luggage got lost, so I had to get an Uber to a friend's house to borrow a guitar, went to Target to buy an outfit, straight onto the stage. And the show was sold out, and it was just like really emotional. It was very hard to not cry the whole way through that gig.
I'm sure.
We went on tour for 2 weeks, and it was the best thing I could have done, just going straight back to music.
I was going to ask you, Pat, how difficult was that to try to grieve your loss after spending some time with your dad, but coming back to the States so far from home?
I guess in a way it was a blessing being so far removed from it. I didn't have to deal with the immediate loss. I felt for my dad, who lives in the house by himself now. So he faces that every day, her absence. Whereas I came back here and not much had changed over here because, I don't see my family over here anyway. So it was kind of a distraction. I'm not sure that's the healthiest way to deal with it, but
that was your way of dealing with it.
I think so, yeah.
And you also wrote a song about losing your mom, which I love. It's called Mam's Song.
Yeah. And that really just spilled out of me. I really wanted to talk to her. And I just remember playing the guitar and just saying things that I would like to say to her. And I never thought of it that it was going to be a song, but I played it at my show that week, and it got such a lovely reaction that I felt it was important to record it. And it's probably the song people talk to me the most about. So
we listened to a little clip of it. It's one of your favorites to sing, I understand.
Yeah, I always love singing it.
Let's share it with our Life Unexpectancy pals.
There's an emptiness here, now you're gone. There's one less voice in my world, one less number in my phone. My safety net fell flush to the floor. Now it's a deathly trapeze, and what am I doing it for? But you come to me.
Wow, I love that song, Pat. Makes me a little sad. I lost my own mom about 16 years ago suddenly, and so I can relate. You know, you talk about seeing her face in the crowd. Happens to me sometimes too. You know, you think you see somebody who looks just like that person, and you realize, of course, it's not the person you hoped it would be.
Yeah. Well, my mother came to every show. She was absolutely my biggest fan. When I visited Ireland, I would wake up to her blasting my CD in the kitchen, and she'd be dancing and singing all the words, like, was obsessed with me. And it was just the best feeling. I was so lucky to have a mother that was that proud. And, you know, so every time I'm playing a show, I can see her there. Like, it's just, I'm just used to her being there singing along. And yeah.
Some of the lyrics in that song, wow, one less number in my phone. You know how you sometimes can't bring yourself to delete a contact when you know that you've lost that good friend or a loved one? You keep them in your phone. Also that line about my safety net fell flush to the floor. Now it's a deathly trapeze. So powerful.
Thanks. I think that was the overwhelming feeling I had. I was like, wow, I've lost my tether to, you know, she brought me into this world. And it is like an emotional safety net, having your parents there to call and talk to about stuff. Of course, my dad is still there, but, you know, it's a significant loss when you can't call your mother. And sometimes, you know, I'll be on the road and I'll be like, oh, I'll call mom. And then you realize, no, you can't do that. But it happens all the time.
You just don't need a phone to talk to them.
There you go.
What would you say, Pat, to those who are not prepared for that sudden unexpectancy in life? Could be the good, in your case, that fame that came suddenly, or it can be, you know, a challenge, a tough challenge. Any advice?
I don't know if there's any advice. I mean, specifically for fame or for
just the unexpected that comes at us, which is what we're all about here on this podcast, how you figure things out, how you navigate when there is no handbook, no guidebook. What do I do now?
Yeah, I guess I don't have any advice because I don't know what I'm doing. I mean, the only thing that's, you know, no one's life is predictable. So I think they're going to deal with unexpected things all the time, and everything's going to work out no matter how bad some things feel at a certain point. For me, it's always worked out okay. And in my head, things are so much worse than they actually are in real life. And so I guess my advice would be not to worry about things so much, which I could do it listening to myself sometimes.
Yeah.
But
and looking back on it all, Pat, would you do this all over again? You know, go for it with the voice and the fame that you had. Would you do that?
In the past, I've told myself that I wouldn't. I've said, no, I wish I didn't do that. But ultimately, I don't think I'd be here if I didn't win The Voice. It wouldn't have pushed me to pursue the career so aggressively. I wouldn't have been able to get my visa. So I'm grateful for it, and I learned a lot from it. And I've learned what I want and what I don't want out of music and out of a career. And so, yeah, I'm grateful I did it. It was a cool experience that not many people on the planet get to say they did, you know. So I would absolutely do it all again.
So wanted to ask you, what surprised you most about Texas? Have you learned a two-step?
A little bit. I can get by, nothing fancy. I really wish I was amazing because it's so fun to watch people two-stepping. But I can get around the dance floor pretty okay. In your head, you know, you think of Texas and I just pictured John Wayne and cowboy movies. That was my what I just pictured America to be. Anything outside of New York was just cowboys. And it's not like that. But it's my favorite city in the world, Austin, specifically. I love Texas, but Austin is really like what I love most about Texas. And the music scene here is just like nowhere else. And people really, you know, hold songwriters in great esteem. They are worshipped, and it's just a great place to be as a musician. The culture around original music is just so strong, and that was kind of my biggest shock, because in Ireland, like I said, I kind of become a commodity where I was singing covers at weddings, and just to be able to come and sing songs you'd written yourself to people who really wanted to hear them is something that doesn't happen in many cities. So I think that's my favorite thing.
This is sort of fulfilling your creative side being there. Are you keeping it weird, as they like to say in Austin?
I think I'm keeping it weird. Maybe not as weird as it used to be, but I'm doing my part.
Are you ready for another little life unexpectancy, Pat?
If it's a good one.
this would be a request to play us off with a song.
Oh, absolutely.
Pat Byrne, thank you so much for being here. We wish you continued great success. I want to hear you play in person at some point, whether it's down there in Texas or maybe up here in New York. It's got to happen.
I'd love that. Thanks, Jim.
All right, what are you going to play for us?
You want to hear Until It Isn't?
Perfect.
Okay, let me grab my guitar.
You said I should have tried harder. I said I didn't know what that meant. You said it is what it is then. You said it is what it is till it isn't. We're always talking past one another, as if the sound waves are bent. Though I plead for understanding, you said it is what it is till it isn't. Yes, you said it is what it is till it isn't. Maybe we should just let go. You pretend I never came. Then maybe we could try to find some peace of mind in this beautiful mistake. You had to look behind door number 2. You played your game outside the limits. Though I begged and I pleaded, you still did it. Yes, I guess it is what it is till it isn't. I guess it is what it is till it isn't. I'm past the point of letting go. In the southern sun, I know my place. Maybe we could find some peace of mind in the afterglow of this beautiful mistake. Of this beautiful mistake. So now I lean into the pain. The sorrow is quite magnificent. Though you begged and you pleaded, I said it is what it is till it isn't. Yes, I said it is what it is till it isn't. I guess it is what it is till it isn't. Yes, it is what it is.
Our thanks to Pat Byrne for our theme music today and always on Life Unexpectancy. Our producer on today's episode is Noni Kulata. Our researcher is Will Thompson. And our editor, Mike Hurst.
Yes, it is what it is.